Happy Wednesday to the world out there, even if it's not Wednesday when you're listening to this. Welcome to the Hawkscast podcast. Gentlemen, how's it going today?
G'day.
Oh, we got Australian Zeb in the house.
Just for that brief moment. That's it. That's all I got.
That's all we need. Just a taste, right?
Right.
Man, it is almost football season. Like, no more preseason, no more fake stuff. We're talking about the real, legit thing. 100% Colombian purifying NFL football.
I can feel it.
In my bones.
In my neck.
I want to just, roll around in it. I'm so excited. And it has nothing to do with the fact that the Seahawks made one of the most amazing last-second trades and roster manipulations, I think, that we'll probably see for a while, right?
Can't say roster without Ross.
Yeah.
It's true. It's absolutely true. Unless you say it wrong, roaster.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you got an accent and stuff just comes out weird.
I figure if you say rooster, you probably call me Rose as well.
Yeah.
Hello, Rose.
Don't call me Rose. Do not call me Rose. Rose, you're so stupid, Rose. Why did you do that? Jack. Okay, moving on.
We're off to a great start.
We're so excited we can't even talk about football because everything is so exciting.
Dude, I'm hyped. I am warning everybody now. I'm super jacked. I'm super hyped. I'm super 2 weeks ago I didn't even. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess football's starting soon. Now I'm like, I can't work. I can't think. I can't do my business because all I gotta do is I keep checking my fantasy football thing. There's nothing that could possibly be happening in fantasy football. I've drafted everything. Everything's set, but I keep refreshing my fantasy football teams right now. I have no idea why. I'm psyched, man. I'm psyched for football.
So, real quick, before we even start, this is the 6th episode of the season. We're talking about preseason drama to the draft to the preseason, and now we are kicking off episode 6, talking about the Cincinnati Bengals coming to Seattle. What would you say your hype is from the previous 6 episodes of the podcast to episode 6 here? If you could give a range where you were at the beginning to where you are now, how are you feeling?
I mean, just before the draft, I was kind of psyched up because you can't do a whole bunch of draft research, which I finally did this year, and not get kind of psyched. But then there's a bit of a letdown because you've watched all this tape on 300 people, and you've got your favorite 15 people, and one of them ends up on the team. So just before the draft, I was super hyped up, and then it's been a steadily decreasing feeling, and I've just been distracted this year, and I didn't care. But then, like I said, the CLOWNEY thing and everything else, I'm compared to two weeks ago even, I'm over the moon.
Zeb, do you have that same reaction? Do you feel like there was this tidal wave of hype that this season is kicking off?
I think I feel about the same this year as I have the last couple, maybe a bit more optimistic, although I'm pretty guilty of being optimistic most of the time. I can accept that. But yeah, that's the thing with the draft, right? It's about 2 or 3 months after the Super Bowl, you kind of get that football hype back for a couple of days, and then over the next week it just kind of dies down, and then you got a whole nother 3 or so months until the football season's actually here. So it definitely comes in waves.
Yeah, I definitely am on that wave of emotion because I didn't get to go to training camp this year, so that definitely put me on a low tier. So didn't get to see Ross, didn't get to hang out at training camp, so that's a thing that always kind of jump starts me. And
that's usually the symbolic beginning of the year when I see you and I'm hanging out with you when we're going to training camp. That is normally the symbolic beginning of the football year.
And then the off season's pretty chill. I mean, you've got big signings like extending Bobby, extending Russ, stuff that we knew was pretty likely to happen. So it's not really exciting to say because it's okay, well, the thing that you thought was going to happen. We're just kind of relieved. It's not, oh, wow, I didn't expect it to be that much money. I don't know. Am I more excited now than I am? But I feel like this last week, going into the final cuts, going and talking about the actual players that are on the team, and I will say that I was actually pretty impressed with how a lot of the players played that Thursday night game against the Raiders, I thought there was a lot of like really solid play from the backups, and that led to some maybe concerns and confusion about what happened with the 53-man roster, which we'll talk about. And real quick, Birdfinger chiming in saying, I've been slogging through the preseason, but the Clowney trade got me pumped and jacked. Which I don't know if there's any other way that you could say it than that seems to be a lot of people are feeling that. Because I can definitely tell social media, Seahawks fans at work, people that I talk to, everyone is definitely more excited about what happened. And it only happened less than a week ago. We're talking about Saturday.
Yeah, Friday night when things started to rumble a little bit, there was some, ambiguous tweets from people like Dwayne Brown and some other stuff. And I stayed up late hoping that I would get the real news. I kind of, at that point, I was like, ready for it to happen. Like I was expecting it. I was thinking that it was actually going to come true, but I just couldn't stay up late enough to get the actual news. So of course, by the time I wake up the next day, everybody already knows.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, we're talking super late. I had already gone to bed, and these two guys, one's in a different time zone, but Zeb's in the West Coast time like myself, and I'm looking at all these texts. Birdfinger, I think, was in there as well. So the three of them
Birdfinger keeps really weird hours.
Shout out to Birdfinger and his weird hours, because that Saturday night, that Saturday morning,
3 o'clock in the morning or something.
Yeah. But yeah, the Seahawks offseason was kicking well into the final breaths of that 53-man roster. Drew closer and closer to the deadline. And we see that turn into a 2020 third-round pick and 2 players into Jadeveon Clowney. A lackluster DLine suddenly looks like a potential contender once it returns to full strength. Key backups got cut and then got brought back within a matter of hours. Captains named, roster settled. This is a Hawkscast podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. Gentlemen, let's jump into it. Let's talk about topic number 1. Ross, topic number 1. Is the 53-man roster settled for week 1 and on?
I mean, it seems like it mostly is. Normally, every year there's like the cool, like you do the savvy veteran move where like you keep the one guy off of the week 1 roster because it's the veteran's salary is then fully guaranteed for the year, And it looked like they were doing that in a really weird position, like with Jerome Brown or whatever. But like, no, they don't. There's nobody like they cut that the thing that looks like they're gonna bring back, and they didn't really pick up anybody. So compared to most years, this looks like mostly what it's gonna be, right? This is it. This is your 53 people, and obviously somebody has got to get cut back week 7 when Reed is eligible to come back from being exiled. And other than that, I mean, unless something weird happens, I think they're set. They did all their clever moves ahead of time, and they all look really, really clever, and I was really excited about how clever it looked until I noticed one negative point about it, and that's like they did the cool Jerome Brown move, right? But then, like, that was our up until they decided Metcalf was suddenly a starter. Jerome Brown was our starting wide receiver all, like, year long, right?
Yep.
And they cut him and to do their little cool move. But, like, nobody claimed him. Our second best, quote-unquote, wide receiver, and, like, nobody cared. Nobody wanted him. Nobody was like, oh, that's better than our 5th. No. Nobody claimed him. That was a little discouraging. But other than that, the 53-man roster looks set, and I'm pretty excited for it, except for a couple small things. But I'm excited. It's set, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna get something weird at some point, and Pete and John are always looking for anything. At any point in the year, there could be something. Somebody will get cut, bring somebody else in, then they'll flip flop, go back to the way it was, something like that. And then, like you said, week 7 when Reed comes back, they'll have to make an adjustment. But I think, for the most part, these are the guys we're going with until people start dropping.
I was surprised that we didn't pick up more. There was a lot of quality wide receivers that got cut, and also like you thought like you were pretty happy with that depth. Like Sammy just talked, like playing the Raiders, we look like some of the second, third, fourth string people looked pretty good. I kind of thought like when we made our cuts, more of our players would be picked up elsewhere.
Yeah, only
But
two
two,
Seahawks
right?
got picked up. J.D. McKissick went to the Lions, and Austin Calitro, he go to the Cardinals, I believe.
Yeah.
Which I was reading.
Marsh also
that-
got picked up, and he went to the Cardinals as well.
Yep, Marsh.
Sorry?
Cassius
Oh,
Marsh.
yeah,
Cassius.
that's true. That's true.
In fact, I
Cassius
saw it
Marsh
on
Senior.
NFL Network when they were showing that Marsh had gone to the Cardinals. They called him the former 49er, Cassius Marsh. Which I guess is true
Yeah, that's who
from a certain point of view.
Yeah, I mean, that was his team last year, so it's not like it's a total surprise. I think what it is I think the roster is set obviously for week 1, but when you looked at what happened between that Saturday cut time, you add the trade in, and you add also the aftermath of what happened over the last 24 hours, even after CLOWNEY got traded for, the roster was, I felt like it looked a little shaky. We had one running back, we had no fullback, we had 7 linebackers, we had 6 wide receivers. So there was like positions where you kind of felt like, man, they're not going to bring anyone in. They're not going to have space for that, anyone to come in. Deshaun Shedd got cut, which I thought was kind of a surprise, but they really like their young guys apparently. Birdfinger's calling that out. And also Calitro went to the Jaguars, according to Birdfinger. So thanks to the call out there.
That's right.
I think that the 53-man roster, while it's set for week 1, there were so many things I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Because I looked at Seattle without a backup running back, and I kind of felt like that's how I run my fantasy team. If I'm going to draft like a really, really high-level fantasy quarterback, if he's done for the year, I'm done in this league. So I'm not really going to try and get like some bargain like quarterback to help salvage my season, because I'm going to put a lot of stock into my main quarterback. And that's kind of what I thought the Seahawks are doing. And then all of a sudden, the trade finally completes with Jadeveon Clowney. A roster spot opens up. We make some moves. Calitro all of a sudden gets cut after making the initial 53. Ed Dixon gets put onto the IR. We only have 2 tight ends on the roster. You know, you look at who they signed on the practice squad. So there was a lot of things that happened in the matter of like less than 48 hours, where the roster for this first week had almost like 20 transactions, which is kind of crazy to think about.
I mean, there was some pretty creative things, I thought, and like some of it's just like not really creative, but you're trying to play the game a little bit different. The Calitro thing, like there wasn't like a big move you can do to save him, but it was like just delay his release, let every other team sort of get settled with what they have, and then hopefully they don't notice that he's been released. That's obviously what they're hoping for, but that dude just showed too much.
Yeah, I mean, like Jaron Brown's a great example of that. When he got cut, I posted this on Hawkscast forum with some of my notable concerns about the roster, which is so many linebackers. Which, you know, I'm not upset with what they did, but outside of, you know, Tyler Lockett, they had David Moore, who originally we thought was going to miss a significant amount of time, but apparently he's like close to practicing again. Then it was just, you know, 3 other rookies on the roster, and it was, you know, really, really concerned about, like, what does this wide receiver core look like? Why aren't we trying to go out, like Ross said, and pick up some street wide receivers and try and make a splash somewhere?
I kind of like them sticking with the young guys there. Just get them out there, see what they can do. You know, it's not the end of the world if a change needs to be made at some point, but you know, how are you really going to know what these guys are going to be able to do unless you give them a chance to get out there and get some actual touches?
True.
Yeah, and if any team's going to do that, it's definitely Seattle. I kind of look at it like if we were to look at how maybe someone manages their fantasy team, this is the closest experience I will ever get to making any kind of NFL-like move, which is going to be my fantasy team. My go-to strategy is to sometimes not even draft a kicker if the league I play in allows it, so I can just have like, I'm going to hold an extra roster spot for maybe a wide receiver or a running back. Maybe they break through in camp, and then once I have to, I'll drop them to place a kicker. That's like the closest that I can imagine my skill level is to what John and Pete did with these crazy, crazy moves over 48 hours.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it just feels like John Schneider plays the game a little bit different from everybody else. He does a lot more of the little moves than other people. And it's not just because we pay more attention because it's sad. I mean, like, I look at a lot of the national, NFL sites about cuts and things, and there weren't a lot of teams that were doing those kind of moves this year. I didn't think. He just seems to be playing it like chess, and everyone else is playing checkers.
I think the closest thing that I've really seen is like people trying to be creative with their practice squad, trying to stash a guy onto the practice squad, hope he doesn't clear waivers so he can stay with the team. I think that's the closest I've seen from like other teams. But I think really to your point, Ross, is like his manipulation is something that's really unseen. Obviously, Seattle media was really, really on it and talking a lot about like why hasn't John Schneider won Executive of the Year, and maybe they give him not enough credit because Pete is heavily involved and they don't think it's fair to give him that title and that praise. But it's kind of crazy to think about. In the 10 years that they've been a team together, neither of them have won Coach of the Year or Executive of the Year.
It's almost like that should have happened in like 2013 and then it didn't. So now like comparing what they're doing now versus what they were able to accomplish back then probably keeps people from voting for him as well.
Right. Same idea that Bill Belichick doesn't win Coach of the Year anymore because it's like, look, you've won it enough, dude. Like go give someone else a chance.
Yeah, except for Pete and John never got their chance.
Yeah, I mean, Ron Rivera, 2-time Coach of the Year. And Tampa Bay's new head coach, Bruce Arians, he's a Coach of the Year as well.
Yeah.
Final comments on the 53-man roster. We are going to talk about Jadeveon Clowney a little bit later in the topics, but final thoughts? I have one prediction, and that's that Jazz Ferguson moves to the 53-man roster at some point this season. I would buy that.
At whose expense?
Whichever guy that we kept doesn't seem to be getting it.
I kind of feel like it's going to be for David Moore. I think David Moore is going to miss more time than Sammy thinks right now. And I think by the time he comes back, I think people are going to be like, kind of a guy. Let's see what this other dude can do. He looks like more than just a guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't disagree. Not that I expect David Moore to come back right away, but there is that kind of talk about like, well, he's not as hurt as we expected, so we might play him. But yeah,
I think saying that, but at the end of the day, it's a bone. It's a broken bone. Like there's a set timeline for when a bone heals.
I don't know. Maybe Russ has been handing out nanobubbles. Heal faster.
Nanobubbles, I think they really want DK and Jennings and Ursua. I think they want all of them to get involved because if you just look at them, they're just much more special athletes.
Yeah.
Than Jerron Brown and more. I think they would love to get these young guys into top positions that just kind of held on to the veterans as some insurance just to see how things go.
I'm excited.
But I think they're definitely trying to go young.
I'm excited for Russ to throw to these guys. I mean, we really haven't seen that at all.
Right.
Nope.
Right.
And that's another thing. Like having a quarterback like Russell, it becomes a little bit less important who your wide receivers are.
Right.
You don't necessarily need names.
Right.
True.
You need athletes, and Russell's going to find ways to get the ball into their hands.
Somebody was talking on the radio last night. Well, last night for me, this morning for you guys. Like when we went to the Super Bowls, it was like this. Like the wide receivers were really good, but if you were evaluating them from the outside, you would have thought like it's a nondescript group because there was no history and there was
pedestrian.
Yes, exactly.
Pedestrian.
So this is a little bit of history repeating itself there, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
People are like, Jennings, who? Metcalf, wasn't he pretty good in college? What has he done lately? So maybe there's maybe there's something going on there.
All right, well, let's move on to topic number 2. So, Zeb, who is the favorite in the NFC West now?
I mean, it's got to still be the Rams if you're looking at it nationally, right? They're just they're in the position we were in a few years ago where we were expected to win. I definitely think, especially with the addition of Clowney over the weekend, I think the Seahawks probably jumped up a lot of people's boards. But I think for the most part, I think if you ask any of the pundits or any casual fan, I imagine that most people believe that the Rams are the favorite.
Ross, do you agree? Are you thinking that the Rams?
I think it's almost maybe I'm being a homer, but I think it's almost like a dead even thing at this point. The Rams, there are signs the league's catching up. Their second half of the year wasn't as successful. Playoffs, they got to the Super Bowl, but then they scored 3 points.
And they shouldn't have been in the playoff, and they shouldn't have been in the Super Bowl either.
Yeah, and they've lost it a little bit. They lost. Who else have they lost? They lost a little bit. Their cornerbacks are getting a little bit old. Gurley has got a bad wheel, although that doesn't seem to handicap him that much. But I don't know. I feel like we gained a lot of ground. Our offense isn't the same type, so it doesn't look like it's so as exciting, but it's a different way, and it's our own type of efficiency. And I think we can compete there. All of a sudden, like I said, it's obvious. Our defense made a huge jump. We went from fringe defensive line to maybe the best in the NFL after week 6.
Yeah.
And linebackers, I think it's undoubtedly we have the best set of linebackers in the NFL. If the defensive backs come around a little bit, I mean, I don't know, man. I expect the national pundits to still say that we are like a wild card contender, but I think trying to be objective about the changes that have been happening, I think it's a dead heat at this point.
I would agree with you. Birdfinger chimes in and says Rams until we beat them. I think that's kind of where I'm at. I think on paper, the fact that the Rams will have pretty much had their roster set for most of the offseason, and they lock up some guys. They just locked up Jared Goff to a big monster deal, which I think was a huge mistake. But it's their money and their team, whatever. I don't care. I think you have to kind of give the Rams a little bit of credit, but what I think it does come down to is it comes down to what does that home away schedule look like? Whoever does well in those 2 games is going to have the momentum for the entire year. And one of those games is a Thursday night game in Seattle, which I think is going to be huge because that's right in the heart of the middle of the season. It's potentially, who will determine who wins the NFC West. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I don't buy the hype of the 49ers at all. I don't know why anyone thinks that they're going to be this amazing team all of a sudden just because, Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have a torn ACL anymore. I don't know why that's like this thing that people are ready to buy in. There's nothing about that team that I think looks like a playoff team. The Cardinals, even with a rookie quarterback, there's nothing about that team that I think is going to be amazing either. They have a new coaching staff. There's so much changeover. Kyle Shanahan on the Niners, this might be his last year if he doesn't have a great season. I can't see him getting another couple of years with John Lynch having about a similar contract, and he might sacrifice Shanahan for his own job security because they can't be a middling 500-ish team for 3 years in a row and sub that and still expect to keep their jobs, right?
Not in the great city of Santa Clara.
Yeah, Santa Clara Tech Committee won't allow for that.
To hold them accountable.
I think another thing to your point, Ross, is that there is some viable question marks of what kind of Rams team is going to show up, not in what we've seen in the playoffs because they've really limited their starters when we talked about on a previous episode, but do they have the ability to come back from a Super Bowl loss and make the splash that they need to? Before the Seahawks in 2005 and in 2013 or 2014, there was a trend where the Super Bowl losing team did not make the playoffs next year. The only teams to really buck that trend, I believe, are Seattle and New England, 2 teams that have lost a Super Bowl but have made it back into the playoffs. So are the Rams resilient? Is Sean McVay enough of a good coach to keep his players focused so they don't read their clippings and say, oh, second coming of the greatest show on turf, we can just like sleepwalk through the season because it's all about the playoffs. I don't know if they are equipped for that, because you looked at what happened in that Super Bowl and they looked so outcoached. I mean, the number one scoring offense scores 3 total points. I don't know, if I'm a Rams fan, how excited I am when they haven't made any huge additions to that offense. And, they're going to get Cooper Kupp, is that his name? Or Connor
Cooper
Kupp?
Kupp.
Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's coming back from injury, so they're going to be healthier at wide receiver. Todd Gurley, who knows what his legs are going to be like, if his knee's going to work. I know I've never drafted him in a fantasy league. I don't know if you guys would this year. But that's a concern.
But they got Taylor Rapp.
Hey, UW Taylor Rapp, shout out to that guy.
And they signed Clay Matthews.
That guy's such a dirty player. I can't stand that guy.
And, I don't know. They lost a lot of stuff. I feel like
You look at what that happened to that team, and I don't know if... let's say they just stay flat. Let's say they stay as good as they were last year. Other teams are creeping up. Seattle has gotten better. Other teams in the league have gotten better. I don't know if the Rams staying at that same level is enough for them to be a favorite in the NFC, like a clear-cut favorite, and repeat their opportunity to go back to a Super Bowl.
I mean, it's hard to get back to begin with. And, they're playing with fire a little bit. You were talking about, earlier, the backup quarterback position. If you lose your quarterback, you're screwed. But I think normally the idea is, if you're going to lose your quarterback all season long, you're always in trouble. But you want to have the backup quarterback that if you miss 4 games, you can win 1 or 2 of them to keep you in the race. And that's why we won Geno Smith this year. The Rams are going with Blake Bortles. So, and then they lost some depth at wide receiver. They get Cooper Kupp back, but after Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods, who are amazing, but also, they've had some injuries and things and missed games. After that, they've got nothing back there. I don't know, man. Their left tackle's Andrew Whitworth, and that dude's 100 years old. Looking at their free safety position, they brought in Eric Weddle, and he's a great name, but at this point in his career, he's more like a name, I feel. He's not Eric Weddle, rival with Earl Thomas for maybe the best in the league anymore.
Right.
So Taylor Rapp's not starting. They're going with John Johnson. This parents is so boring they couldn't think of a new name.
Johnny Johnson.
But I think that speaks to the fact that if these are viable questions, if we as Seahawks fans can ask these questions of the Rams, doesn't that mean that there's opportunity where they might not be as good as people expect, right?
Definitely. Their defensive line, which used to be oh my God, it's Aaron Donald, and then after that it's Sebastian Joseph Day and Michael Brockers. That doesn't scare me like Dominic Sue does. It doesn't. And they're Clay Matthews we just talked about. I don't know, man. I feel like they've slid, and I think we've caught up a lot, and I think it's an even race now, man.
I think add the fact that the Seahawks played both games against the Rams, made it a 1-score game. I think bodes well for us. Now we have to be able to continue to grow on that, and there's equally as many questions about the Seahawks as there are of can the Rams continue to maintain. But I would definitely argue that while we don't require to have all-star wide receivers to succeed, our running game has gotten better, our offensive line has gotten better, and our defense has gotten better, which was one of the biggest issues that I thought was our downfall last year. And if we were a 10-win team last year with those deficiencies and we've improved those aspects this year, who knows what can happen. And I like that.
Also, sorry, but I think one factor that we haven't talked about and it's kind of mostly gone under the radar is Will Dissly looks like he could be a difference maker. We forgot because he was only playing 2 full games or 3 full games last year, but he looked like he was going to be a serious difference maker, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then
He looked ridiculously smooth. Like
Right,
he
and he's
looked
all
like
the
he'd
way
been
back.
like a 5-year pro at the tight end position, not a blocking tight end from college.
Right. And so that could be like a huge thing, man. That could be really, really big. While we're struggling a little bit of wide receivers figuring out, I mean, Metcalf is going to be good. I think we all know that. But it's going to take some adjustment, potentially.
Yeah.
But he's there, and he can do this. And like you said, Russell Wilson will buy you a lot of leeway at the wide receiver position, and they've done that for years. I like the fact that they've gone back to that. Let the wide receiver be the sort of the cheap position you can get by without having to pay anybody, because a lot of people can catch a ball.
Right.
So I like it. I like it.
Final thoughts on the AFC West. Anyone want to talk about the Niners or the Cardinals? Are we good?
You said AFC West, dude.
NFC West. Sorry.
As much as I don't like the Niners and don't feel like they're going to be great by any means this year, every time I watch them play in the playoffs, those guys were playing hard and fast. So they got something going for them.
In the playoffs or the preseason?
The preseason.
You just said playoffs. You said playoffs. He's saying the AFC. What's going on?
We're so excited, I meant we can't get our mind straight.
I saw a post Clowney trade prediction showing the 49ers ahead of the Seahawks in the NFC West, at 9-7, and we were going to be 8-8. How do you got Seattle going back 2 games? What?
I think because you didn't believe that we were really worth 10. We didn't really deserve to be
10-6
last year.
A lot of people go, oh, well, it was all because of turnovers, and that's what saved them. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, anything could happen.
Anything.
All right.
19-0.
19-0. Oh my God, that would be insane. All right, well let's move ahead. Let's talk about topic number 3. This is the Hawks Cast Corner. This is a shout out to Birdfinger for the topic, and the topic is Clowney to Seattle. Ross, what happened here? Did the Texans mess up? Did Clowney just demand the world? Did John and Pete just not give enough fucks? How did this trade happen?
There's so much going on here, isn't there? So apparently Clowney was about to report, and that's when he heard that they were going to trade him to Miami. And he was still going to be like, okay, I'm still going to sign my tender. He goes down to Miami. Miami is such a shit show. Can I say that? I just said that. It's such a shit show. That's not even my normal vocabulary, but I have to use it in this case. That he's like, holy crap, I can actually use my power for good this time, and he's going to use it for good, and refuses to sign it, refuses to go there. Says he'll go to the Eagles or the Seahawks. That's out in the media. But apparently, looking at the final terms, I think Birdfinger is the first one to kind of suggest this to me, and now it seems pretty verified that the more he talked to Dwayne Brown, the more he went, yeah, I kind of go to the Eagles, but you know what? I'm going to Seattle. Let's go to Seattle. And I love the fact that he brought up the weather. That's such a redeeming, such a redemption for Seattle. He brought up the weather as a minor factor. Dwayne Brown's going it's not humid here. Climate change is making every place suck, but Seattle's still nice. So go to Seattle. So then he does that, right? It's a total power move, and what's amazing to me is this is gonna wake everybody up. This isn't like a one-off right now. Every player who's always hated their franchise tag is now gonna evaluate and go, wait, can I do a Clowney? Can I turn the franchise tag into pricing myself into the team, into situations? Probably won't work because, the Texans really should have traded him before July 15th and gotten a whole bunch of stuff, but that's where they really messed up. I don't think they understood the implications because as we all have talked about ad nauseum now, they don't have a general manager. Their coach is trying to do everything. And he's a smart guy, but he's not a general manager. And he doesn't know all the dates and the times that you got everything. He should be talking to Super Madden fans because so many fans know all this stuff by heart now because of how, the internet and because of detailed games now. But dude, that Clowney just was yeah, he did an NBA move, kind of, didn't he? Where,
yeah.
You're just gonna go play with your friends. My friends in Seattle. I'm just gonna go play with my friends. No. He's and it's not even a long-term thing. He pointedly did not say anything yeah, I hope I can make my home here. I'm gonna go buy a house. He was you know what? Today's today. And you know what? September in Seattle is lovely, but I haven't seen December yet. So I don't know. There was so much going on. Like I thought this was really, really, really intriguing, and I'm really, really interested in how this plays out, like long term with other players, and if other players can like finagle them, if they think people are. Because who was it? Seattle was doing the same thing recently, right? They were going to last year or Tuesday. They were going to franchise tag somebody. Oh wait, it was this year. They were going to franchise tag somebody purely with the idea of trading them, right?
Frank Clark, they tagged him.
Right. So other players in that situation, like if Frank Clark had never signed, could have if essentially Frank Clark could have done the same thing eventually, right? Unless I'm missing something.
I think Zeb.
Yeah.
You were staying up. You were trying to keep your ear to the ground. I think that's the phrase. And you were looking at Dwayne Brown.
My eyes to the tweets.
Eyes to the tweets. You're looking at social media. We talked about this last week, and it's like, oh man, maybe we'll have to give up a second, and we're giving up Process. Process, just stay healthy, like become a valuable trade option. Then you see this trade. We're talking about Barkevious Mingo and Jacob Martin. Jacob Martin, who I actually like. I thought he was a great third-round pick last year. Really good depth guy. But did you imagine that the Seahawks would basically get change back plus half of Clowney's contract signed by this team for, again, not just like a defensive end, but a really good defensive player against the run and the pass?
Yeah, I think the few hours leading up to when all the details finally came out and there was info starting to leak, especially when it was like it's two players, but nobody had named any of the players yet. We don't know who it is, and there was names being speculated, different positions, and then when it finally came out that it was Martin and Mingo, I mean, I don't think you can ask for a much better of a swap from our perspective. Like, sure, those guys, Martin has a lot of potential. He kind of flashed a bit last year here and there. Was somebody that I think most of us were looking forward to seeing if he could continue to grow and maybe turn into the player we want him to be. Mingo, kind of the opposite, hadn't throughout his career really lived up to expectations. He'd played okay here and there, looked good sometimes, looked out of place other times. But ultimately, to bring in a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, and those are the guys that you're giving up to get him, I just don't think you can ask for much more than that. Yeah, and then you throw in the way the money is working out to our advantage, and then the fact that we're likely to net a third-round pick the following season if we let him walk, if we don't sign him long-term. It's that kind of rent potential for a rent-to-own type situation with compensation if we let him go. I mean, it's pretty much perfect from the business side of it, from what I can see. So now it just comes down to play on the field, and I don't think there's anybody outside of maybe Houston at this point that wouldn't say, yes, I would love to have Jadeveon Clowney on my team.
I think that's the really interesting thing about it, is the fact that Jadeveon Clowney, thanks a lot in part to Dwayne Brown, made Seattle a destination. This is something that I think teams and media people have been talking forever. Is Pete Carroll's mantra, is Pete Carroll's win forever, is Pete Carroll's raw system going to continue to entice people? We know that it turned a few players off. The Richard Sherman and the Earl Thomas and the Michael Bennett's of the world have, definitely taken steps away, and definitely, some more vocally than others talked poorly about the team. But then there's other players that have fully bought in. You look at what Bobby has done. You look at what Russell have done. Obviously, they're key components to the team. Then you add guys like Cam Chancellor still staying with the team. You talk about Cliff Averill still staying close by. So, and Marshawn Lynch still, communicating with the Seahawks and other players. It's interesting to think that the influence does have impact. And I think that maybe speaks to a component of why Seattle and John and Pete were able to make this move, because on paper, this move is a heist. It's a fleece. It's, basically giving someone change, but instead of getting a quarterback, they give you 100. there's really no way to explain this in football terms other than the Texans messed up and Seattle just took full advantage. John Schneider was on sports radio. I can't remember what station, but apparently he's been talking to Bob O'Brien since the draft about Jadeveon Clowney and his potential of coming to Seattle. I doubt he was always dangling a third for it, because if any team is going to get a compensatory pick in 2021 for Jadeveon Clowney, it's going to be Seattle. So I don't know if there's enough words to express, and I do want to give a huge shout out to Birdfinger, who did a great job of getting a lot of really key tweets onto the Hawkscast forum. There's a lot of great information. It was really interesting to see all the concerns, like, oh, it's a third and 2 players, and it was initially CJ Procise and Jermaine Ifedi, because the Houston needs running back and offensive line help, and then it's maybe it's CJ Procise and a defensive player, and it kept evolving. And then as more and more news came out, it just got, wow, really, whoa, really, and it just got better and better and better. And it's almost insane to think about how good of a deal this is. And I want to add another point here, guys, is in order for Houston to get that left tackle that they had in Dwayne Brown 2 years ago, who's now on our team and has signed an extension, they gave up 2 first-round picks for Larry Tunstall from Miami, who they could not work a trade for. What if you're a Houston Texans fan, are you concerned for your team and its future?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they got like significantly worse. That like I said, between Mingo and Martin, they may have some legitimate defenders there, guys that can come in and play. And then, they gave up a lot of draft capital to get who they got from Miami. But once you have those players in camp, or you got those players on your team now, they're actually capable guys that are probably going to help them. So the future of the Texans is interesting, but I don't feel like by any means they got significantly worse this season after all this.
Yeah, because they're trading future for now. Kind of that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be afraid for my future just because it seems like the ship's a bit rudderless. They need a GM.
Yeah,
they
totally.
Need a GM. They need. He gets hit 10 times. They need a GM because they have talent. They have DeAndre Hopkins. They've got Deshaun Watson. They've got Will Fuller. Even they have got some exciting players on the team. They still have JJ Watt. But you can't make one move that looks like you're bailing on talent, and then the next move you make looks like you're desperately playing for right now. What are you doing? What's your plan? What's your overall goal? And make everything sort of fit the overall goal, please.
Yeah, they better get Charlie Casterly on the horn.
Man.
Hey, they got to figure out what is the top-rated NFL analyst on NFL Network or on ESPN, and pull the next Mike Mayock and just put him in the GM booth.
At this point, it literally could be anybody as long as it's that person's only job, right? Like, anybody could have just looked up how the scheduling of stuff works out and figured out that no matter what, we have to sign Clowney or give the Clowney or trade Clowney by July 15th. Otherwise, we've got nothing. Otherwise, he can't sign a long-term contract for until the next league year, which means now we have no leverage because whoever's trading for him is getting a one-year rental max. Maybe the right to negotiate with him, they get to talk first. But that's all they're getting. They can't. The trade couldn't have included an extension, right? As soon as you didn't do that by July 15th, you've just, excuse me, I'm going to swear again today, fucked yourself.
Yeah.
So you needed, literally anybody, Zeb could have done it. Zeb.
Not me. I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Zeb panics and says, I'll trade you my first and Jadeveon. Give me your third back.
A lot of casual fans literally would have known, dude, you got to do it by July 15th. Otherwise, you've just, So, anybody, as long as it's their only job. You can't, the coach who's, kind of trying to do both. And I think the era for that ended. Like Holmgren tried to do both. And that didn't work out for him either. And if Holmgren can't do it, nobody can.
Right.
You got to have a GM. unless you're Bill Belichick.
Last question for the Jadeveon Clowney to Seattle topic here is, if Seattle gave up a second instead of a third, would you take issue with that? Because obviously it's a worse trade for Seattle, but would your excitement for having Clowney be impacted at all?
For me, it would that if the idea is to keep him long term, I'd be totally okay with it. It's probably too much to give up for just the one season, unless this happens to be the season and everything works out great and we win the Super Bowl. Then who cares? But
wait, did we just win the Super Bowl?
But yeah, I'm definitely as it is definitely glad it's a third over a second.
Ross, if they had to give up a second instead of a third, how does your view on the trade change?
I'd still have done it. I don't think I want to give up 2 players. I only want to give up 1. They can have Mingo.
Who we were going to cut, apparently.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'd still would have done it. Like we talked about this a little bit last week or 2 weeks ago, and I said, when you got Russell Wilson, if you're going to pay him that much, then every year counts. Every year you have to be all in every year, because otherwise, what are you doing? You're just wasting his career. You're just wasting your time. You can't rebuild it once you do that contract. You can't reload. You're just always in.
Yeah.
And so, are we going to be better this year if we've got him? Yes, we are. I don't think I would go around like taunting Texan fans as much if we'd given up a second.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be all over like Twitter going, "Oh my gosh, how dumb are they?"
Yeah, they're getting roasted online.
But I still would have been in favor.
Birdfinger chiming in says, I was expecting and was okay with the second. I was okay with the second and pro size. So I think the fact that you still retain all those things, even if it meant a second and you're still giving up Mingo and Jacob Martin, I still think that's a win for the Seattle because of that mentality of like, look, this is a chance to win now. It's a worthwhile trade to address something that I think most of us saw as like a huge concern in that defensive line, especially with Jarran Reed missing the first 6 days. Quick note about Jarran Reed: he has actually given up his number 90 to Jadeveon Clowney. Apparently Jarran Reed is moving to 91. There's a great Twitter conspiracy idea that Jadeveon said, hey, you know what, I'm going to pay for the 6 weeks of your rookie contract that you're missing for your number. And Jarran Reed's like, well, shoot, yeah, I'm not getting paid anyway. Might as well give you my number.
Cool.
It could be.
It's a great theory if it's out there, but who knows? All right, let's move on to the final topic of the year.
I gotta say one last quick thing.
No more things.
No, it's a tiny thing.
All right.
I wish the trade had included pro size, because the one thing that makes you nervous about this year is we've kept pro size has kind of conned himself onto the team
again.
It makes me nervous. I feel like as soon as we start depending on him, it's gonna fall apart.
Well, I think no one's depending on him because I like Homer more. I obviously like Penny and Carson more. So I think the fact that Process is on the team is because they love his talent and no one loves his health. And I think that's what they're banking on this year.
That's why I wanted to trade him.
Yeah, I don't argue with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
I just wanted to say that.
All right, topic number 4, Zeb. We're going to wrap this up with topic number 4. And as I said earlier, I'm not super excited about the Bengals. I'm excited about the Seahawks to play anybody. But does winning this first game bode well for the rest of the year?
Of course. I mean, I think winning in week 1 always helps you to kind of set that winning tone. Ultimately, when you get to week 17, you look back at what happened in week 1. Rarely does that really matter. But, you know, who doesn't want to get a win in week 1? Before Pete Carroll came along, and I think even under Pete Carroll, the Seahawks have tended to struggle a little bit on week 1 for whatever reason. I don't know why. But I would love, for me, it bodes very well if the Seahawks come out and play a good game and knock the snot out of the Bengals.
Ross, what do you expect? What does winning this first game mean to you for the rest of the year?
Well, I read a statistic that said most of the time Super Bowl winners win most of their games. So
Interesting fact.
Yeah. 100% of Super Bowl winners have won a game in their first 4 or 5 games. So we can just get out of the way and then move on. Because after that first game, there's a few hard games. We go into a little bit of a difficult stretch. So I think you want to have that. We need that one. Then like if we do happen to lose 2 out of the next 4 after that, it won't look as bad.
I think this whole season is a difficult stretch from what I'm looking at.
Nah. We still get to play the Cardinals twice. We still get to play San Francisco Clara of Northern California twice. But it is a hard schedule.
I feel like with the Cardinals, we either beat them by 4 touchdowns or it's just some weird, crazy game where they win and they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
6-6 tie.
Oh, God. That game was the worst. I wanted to punch a TV for that game.
I didn't feel like I had like an out-of-body experience by the fourth quarter. I didn't feel like I was really watching a Seahawks game. I feel like I was watching 2 like unrelated teams just randomly watching them.
You know what that game was like? That game was like the Charlie Whitehurst 6-9 game against the Cleveland like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Ugh, I want to punch a TV right now. Yeah, winning the first game is huge, especially because it's a home game. This team, you know, we don't really know what we're going to get. I think we're all excited for it, but we don't know what this defense is going to look like. We don't know what this offense is really going to look like because we haven't seen them put together anything close to a starting lineup. You know, I don't think more than 6 starters have played at the same time in this preseason on the offensive or defensive side. It's kind of weird to think about that because we talked about it in the last episode. Preseason has really changed. It's all about practice, but practice has become more and more limited. So what do fans know what to expect with this team? But, you know, there's a heavy veteran presence with this team. You look at that offensive line, everyone has starts under their belts. No one's a rookie. The biggest rookie that we're looking at is a third-string wide receiver. There's no other rookies that are starting for this team. There's definitely a lot of depth that those rookies are expected to play well, especially in special teams with those linebackers and in the secondary. But this is a pretty veteran team, and I would expect that we can improve upon our team's performance last year, and I think winning this first game is going to show that. And if we blow out the Bengals, like if Jadeveon Clowney, Zeke Ansah, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, you know, Michael Kendricks, just like blow the roof off of that Bengals team, you know, people are going to get hyped, people are going to go crazy, and then who knows what to expect, because the idea is Jadeveon Clowney's only had like 3 practices with Seattle. What's it going to be like when he plays more and he's not just like, oh, we're going to have you set the edge, we're going to have you, you know, run a draw, we're going to have you run a blitz up the middle. He's going to play in a defense that he says he's more comfortable in. So I'm really excited for that opportunity. Winning this first game and the manner in which they do it could be huge for the rest of our year.
Totally agree.
Anyone even concerned about the Bengals as a team? Is there any aspect of their team that you're concerned about?
They're missing AJ Green. So
I think their left tackle is also potentially
apparently
like in concussion protocol or something.
Yeah, apparently their offensive line is garbage.
Yeah.
And you know, they're professionals. They're not like, you know, kids that they picked up a street expecting to play like offensive line, but they're not being well publicized by even their own fan sites. So that's always a bad sign.
We historically don't play great against the Bengals for whatever reason. Like, not that matters. It shouldn't make a difference. I'm not particularly afraid of them. Like, I think we've all seen Andy Dalton's a capable quarterback, but he's by no means a star. And with a guy like AJ Green out, this is a game the Seahawks should win. I'm not going to go into week 1 expecting a blowout, but you know, they should be able to come away with a W.
I'm expecting a blowout.
42.
Not that bad, but are we gonna do predictions?
Mm-hmm.
I'll hold on.
In fact, that's the very first one, isn't it?
What a segue, gentlemen. These are real professionals here. We got our predictions right for you. With that, Zeb, I'm going to hit you off first. The line for this game is 9.5. Final score: Bengals versus Seahawks.
31-13.
Ooh, I like it. Ross?
That's about 34-10.
Oh, I'm gonna price this right, Ross. I'm gonna give Seahawks 35 points. They're gonna get 5 touchdowns. So sorry for all the Jason Meyer fantasy kickers out there. He's only gonna get 5 points on the PATs. The Bengals, I think they're gonna score 13. So I'll stay with 13, but they're gonna get 35-13 as the final score.
So 35-13, 34-10, 31-13. Yeah, mine's the least blowout of all the blowouts.
Birdfinger chiming in with the 27-13 Seattle. See, he's not giving
lack of respect.
Any respect for the Bengals. Zeb,
I bet he has less than 2 touchdowns for Metcalf. Come on, man.
Dude, I will blow my head out if the first play is like play action, 70-yard bomb to DK Metcalf off of play action.
80 yards, dude.
Oh, man. All right.
Galloway special.
Zeb, first tackle for a loss or a sack. Is it going to come from the defensive line, the linebackers, or the secondary?
Well, it's going to come from Puna.
Ooh.
So, D-line.
Ross, what are you thinking?
Well, that's not right because it's going to come from Bobby.
That's not right either.
As well.
It could be from Kendricks. It could be, but I think it's Bobby.
I think the Seahawks love going base package and they want to really get pressure from the front four. But I think Ken Norton has been dialing up blitzes. I think they've been pretty effective. I'm going to say the secondary is going to get a sneaky sack because they're going to go into a max protect, and then we'll say Shaquille Griffin's going to get his first sack of his career, I believe.
Mm.
All right, this one I think is going to be big. Zeb, who's going to generate the first turnover on the defense? Defensive line, linebackers, or DB?
Linebacker.
Ross, who you got?
How can Zeb be wrong every time? It's obviously a defensive lineman. It's obviously Ansah.
This seems unfair.
Yeah.
I think that this is a little bit...
If Zeb isn't going to take it seriously,
I think I'm going to go... The first turnover is going to come from Bobby. Birdfinger said that the first sack is going to come from KJ Wright. So I'm thinking Bobby's going to play out of his mind. He's had multiple great seasons, and I think Bobby's going to get the first turnover. What's going to be the first touchdown for Seattle, Zeb? Is it going to be a pass, a run, defense scoring, or a special teams play?
It's going to be a pass to a rookie.
Which rookie?
Dunno.
Doesn't matter. A lot of them.
Dunno, don't care.
Ross, how are we going to score that first touchdown?
I think we already discussed this on the Joey Galloway special.
I think we are going to
and just air it out to Metcalf.
That's what I would love. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Unawares before they go, okay, yeah, that guy's fast, but before they realize how fast he is, you don't want the first time he goes deep to be as a decoy. Take advantage of it for real, right? Just blow them away the first play.
Yeah,
the old Willie Galt play.
I'm with Birdfinger. I'm saying they're going to matriculate down the field. They're going to run, and it's going to be a Chris Carson touchdown. It's going to be the first touchdown of the season.
What are you, a Chuck Knox fan?
I am a big fan of the ground chuck philosophy.
But we want chunk plays with that. That's Pete Carroll's addition to ground
that's the Brian
chuck.
Schottenheimer philosophy, which I think is gonna play its hand. First play from scrimmage, is it going to be a run or a pass? Zeb.
Pass. It's gonna be a pass.
Yeah, Zeb's taking it seriously now. I agree.
It's a run focused team. Birdfinger says it's going to be a pass to Disley, which would be great to see because we haven't seen a whole lot of him in the preseason. I'm going to say it's a pass. Zeb, over under on touches for CJ Pro Size at 7.5.
Under.
Is that Ross 7.5 for
Under.
CJ? Under.
Oh, definitely. Way under.
1 or 2 max.
Birdfinger's saying under. I'm going to say over, and the reason why he's going to get over is he's going to get a bunch of snaps in third down situations. We're going to try and pass to him, and it's just going to drive that trade value up and up and up so they can trade him away.
I'm not convinced that Carson's coming out on third down.
Carson's been a monster, so I mean, you have.
I think they want to go to Carson.
Yeah. Over under Zeb 4.5 targets for DK Metcalf.
Over.
Yeah, way over.
4.5, more like 45.
He's going to go under because they're just going to do those 3 play action bombs to him. He's going to catch 2 of them, and then the game will be over. So
He'll be on the sideline with his shoes off.
Yeah. Birdfinger's saying under as well.
If he catches a 9-yard dig route and he runs the route well, I will probably be more excited than when he runs his Joey Galloway.
Yeah.
Because wow, oh my God, did you just stop? Did you just change directions?
And the final prediction for the night: who is going to be the surprise scratch on the offense or on the team? Sorry, there's 53-man roster. Only what is it? 45 suit up.
Yeah.
All right. Who is going to be a healthy scratch surprise, Zeb?
Well, I don't know, but I'm going to guess CJ Pro Size.
That's not a surprise.
No, exactly.
It's a surprise healthy scratch. Like if they if it's 1 hour before the game and then the radio announcer dude that you're listening to the pregame on goes oh well, looks like Pro Size isn't suiting up today. Wouldn't you just be I knew it?
Yep. Of course.
If it's a surprise healthy scratch is Justin Britt.
What?
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. A surprise healthy scratch is, jeez, I don't know, man. It's gonna be Jennings.
Jennings? Okay.
Is that a surprise?
I wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a lot of wide receivers. They're already missing 2.
Yeah.
That means they're going in with just 3. That's just
Since we're talking surprise, not obvious like a CJ Pro Size, who I'm giving
not a surprise.
Not a surprise to. We're gonna throw out and say Shaquem is gonna be a surprise healthy scratch.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's my
That's
closest
fair.
bid.
No offense, but why is that dude on the team?
Because he's really good at special teams.
I feel like this year, I feel like I say that about everybody. When I was trying to figure out the cuts and everything, and I was going through it over and over again on the post, every dude I would read about or an interview, every third reserve player, was the comment was really good on special teams. So our special teams coverage this year better be amazing.
It better be.
Everybody's a special teams ace now.
Well,
except for Caruso, and that's why he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
Even he was pretty good, but he was an ace.
Right. I think what it is with Kalichu is he doesn't have the same speed that maybe the other guys
do. It's all
do.
about speed. It's the missing factor when people guess all this year.
Yeah.
But when you are trying to guess it, it's the 2 mistakes we all make. We think it's about overall talent of the position, and it's not. It's about special teams when it comes to the reserve.
Right.
And it's about speed more than anything else. Speed is better than your tackling ability. Speed is more important than your knowledge of the. Speed is more important than how cool your nickname is, which is a mistake.
I don't know. There's some pretty cool names out there.
Although American culture's really gotten away from really cool nicknames. We don't have White Shoes Johnson anymore.
No.
I don't know why.
That's true. That's true.
You should do a study on that.
We should. Maybe
Because
another podcast episode.
There were really interesting nicknames, right? Broadway Joe.
Yeah, but that's also when you had to sell the product and get people excited about it. I mean, I'll be excited if there's 300 Steve Smiths running out there.
Dude, if Andy Dalton had a really cool nickname, I'd probably be a little more excited about it.
Dude, he's the Ginger Spock.
Ginger Spock.
I can totally see that.
If they sold a toy.
And that is our episode for today. Gentlemen, shout-outs.
I got some shout-outs.
All right, Zeb with the shout-outs.
Shout out to Marquise Brown and Marquise Lee and Marquez Brown Lee.
How about Marquise Blair, who's on the team?
I know 3 or 4 of those 4 guys. Not personally, I just know of them, I should say. Ross, any shout-outs today?
Yeah, but I forgot who they are. I made a mental note this week.
Taco Wallace.
That's old school.
Well, yeah. Taco Wallace and Pork Chuck Womack.
Ooh, really?
When we had like
school.
a team-themed, like a food-based offense. I don't know. I guess that's it. Oh, to Jeremy for already confirming my first fantasy football trade of the year. That was
well done,
approved
Jeremy.
today.
Hopefully you fleeced somebody.
And trying to do a Houston, Texas thing. I guess that's it. Tony, awesome as usual. Birdfinger listening in.
Bird.
Special shout out to Bird. I want to give a shout out to Boy X Scout on Twitch. He's a streamer. I'm in a streamer league with him. I'm gonna dominate all of his players. I'm gonna win all the things. So I want a special shout out to the Mediocre Online Streamers League. Good luck to all the fantasy flyers out there. Good luck. Remember, games start on Thursday. Get your kickers in. Get your defenses in. We're the Hawkscast podcast. I'm Sam. They are Zeb and Ross, and we want to wish you a go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.